Okay, boxing fans, we're going to talk about the big story in boxing. Peter Quillin vacates his middleweight title, and its real title is IBF. No, it's not. WBO middleweight title. He's vacated the chance of fighting for $1.4 million, which was one hell of a lot more than he's ever been paid before. And fighting a guy who by no means is the best in the division. Fighting inside his hometown. Oh, I've got to ask you, Chris Connolly, would you, if you were a world level boxer with a world title, and I presented you $1.4 million to fight a guy who's not the best in your hometown, would you take it, or would you do a bitch move and leave it?
I'd take it. There isn't even any question to this. It's the biggest bit of... I haven't even got a word for it. It's just an absolutely fucking ridiculous idea from Quillin and his team to turn down such a big payday against a guy he should be beating in his hometown. Absolute fucking joke. I mean, he's a proper world champion. He's a WBO full world champion, and he's fucked it off to fight for an eliminator for some regular belt. Absolute load of nonsense to me. I can't even explain why you'd do it. Why would you turn down 1.4 million, your biggest payday, against someone you should be beating?
Yeah, okay, well, let's take the money out for a minute, Chris. We'll just take the money out for a second, okay? Why would you drop a real world title to fight for a fake world title? That's like me saying to you, right, see this Ferrari? You don't want that Ferrari. You want this shitty banger right here.
I just can't explain why he'd do it unless there's another fighter in the division who maybe wants to unify. I think it's pretty obvious who may want to unify after he's fought his next fight anyway, so...
Maybe, but I don't see why he couldn't have done that with the WBO title anyway.
Well, he could have fought this fight. He could have done it afterwards, couldn't he, if he wanted to? If he really wanted to, he could have done it afterwards. You don't turn down... You just don't throw away a world title for no good reason to fight for nothing. What? I can't understand that.
And as well, then you add in the $1.4 million. That's life-changing money, and this guy's got a kid. New kid. There you go. Pay off the house. Got some money in the bank still. What is? I'm gonna ask you the next question, Chris. Is Peter Quillin a disgrace to the nickname Kid Chocolate?
He's a disgrace to boxing, throwing his world title away for no good reason. I cannot see one good reason why you would. Why would you relinquish your world championship belt? That is the pinnacle of every boxer's career, to be a world champion, to fight and defend world championships. The guy is giving it away. You know, then you add the money in, looks even worse. A nonsensical decision.
Exactly. Here's another thing. Some fighters are bigger than world titles. It's true, unfortunately. Your Pacquiao's. Maybe not your Andre Woods, and your Mayweather's, people like that. Kid Chocolate's not bigger than world titles. You can't just go, I'm going to drop this title now, I'm going to fight this one over here, I'm going to do this over here, I'm going to move up and fight this guy. He can't do that, he's not that good. You know what I mean? I mean, the real Kid Chocolate, Eligio Montalvo, he would be turning in his grave right now. He'd be thinking about this. Who's this guy using my name? Disrespecting my name. That's what he should be thinking. 6 foot under or whatever it is. We'll move on to the next one. What do you know about this killer known as Matt Korobov, who strikes fear into the heart of Quillin? Chris?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Well, the only thing I know really is that he was a decent amateur. He's not got any big massive names on his record as a professional. You know, you shouldn't be quaking in your boots for someone like that. It would just so set for Quillin to get a really big payday, to look good, and then, you can shout from the rooftops about fighting other guys. This is a big backward step, so, you can say what you want about Korobov. Maybe you thought Korobov might win, but, you put the records together, you look at the hype, you look at all things, you consider everything, Quillin would have been a huge favourite.
Exactly, I think so too. So Al Heyman wants Peter Quillin to fight Danny Jacobs for the WBA bitch title. Do you want to see that?
No. Why would you want to fight for a bitch title when you've got a proper one? It's so illogical. I mean, you can shout and swear and say everything you want towards Quillin. The guy is an absolute fucking joke.
So, if that fight happens, can you see Showtime giving Peter Quillin a minimum of $1.4 million just on his own, not split between two, just on his own to fight Danny Jacobs?
I just can't see how that sort of money can be talked about. This is why I just don't understand. Defend your world championship belt, then you've got the money fights. Going to a bitch title, there can't be that much money in that fight, surely.
Mm-hmm. So, are you surprised by this bitch move from Quillin, or did you really expect it?
Absolutely astonished, but with Al Heyman, all sorts of weird things can happen. So it's not the biggest surprise, but on a personal level, as a man, I'm disappointed in Quillin. Use the word bitch earlier. He's just behaved like a big silly bitch.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just gonna leave you there. We'll bring in Rory now. So, Raw Dog, I'm gonna start from the top with you. If you're a world level boxer, and I present you with $1.4 million to fight a guy who is not the best in the division, the fight's inside your hometown, are you taking it or are you leaving it?
Take it every single day of the week, don't you?
Yeah.
You take the fight and you have a word with anyone who's trying to convince you otherwise, and you slap them in the face and go, no, this is in my best interest.
Exactly, because it is in your best interest, because the money's big and you're fighting your mandatory anyway, which no one can really say. No one can dish you for fighting your mandatory, because you've got to fight your mandatory.
So, I mean, even taking the titles out of it, and where you fight and who you're fighting, to an extent who you're fighting, at the end of the day, boxers are in it to make money, just as you and I, and people do their day job sort of thing. They're in it to make money, to survive, to look after themselves, and the money that was being talked about, 1.4 million, is the biggest payday Quillin's ever going to have had.
Mm-hmm. It's life-changing, yeah.
Exactly, and like you said, you've got wife and kids. They should be first, and no matter to an extent who the fight is against or who it's with, you make that money to set yourself up for life, because it's a short career, boxing as well. You're only in it for a short amount of time. You've got to get as much money out of it as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So, is Peter Quillin a disgrace to the real Kid Chocolate?
This is where, I mean, in terms of how good a fighter they are, yes, very much so. In terms of, if we're talking about how he's acted in this one incident, I don't think he should have done what he's done. But at the same time, and this is where I kind of disagree, is that we don't know to an extent what's been said by his newfound advisor, shall we say, Al Heyman. I imagine that Al Heyman's told him an absolute ton of, let's be honest, bullshit, and said, oh, you don't need that, drop that title, you don't need 1.4 million, I can make you 5 times that, 3 times that, whatever, I'll double your money, I'll get this, I'll get that, you'll be sorted. And you and I know that that's probably a load of bullshit, but depends on how, naive Quillin is, or how intelligent he is. He's probably just gone along and thought, oh yeah, well, Al Heyman knows boxing. He's probably talking a load of sense, and just nodded along and gone, okay, yeah, you've obviously got my best interests at heart. You won't be telling me this otherwise. And he's kind of just agreed to it. And he's just basically going to be a pawn in Al Heyman's sort of what seems to be overtaking of boxing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what do you make about Matt Korobov? Do you know anything about him?
Don't know much at all. I'd be ignorant of me to say it would have been an easy fight for Quillin, but looking at everyone else in the middleweight division, it's certainly one of the easier fights, And not only that, if you're the sort of named fighter and is in your hometown, let's be honest, as long as you can hear that bell, you're going to end up with the title still in your hands anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially with the style of Matt Korobov, he is a boxer, but he would work into Quillin's game plan. He definitely would. Like I said, Al Heyman wants Quillin versus Jacobs for the bitch title. You want to see that?
It's an okay fight, but geez, let's be honest. Out of all the possible fights in the middleweight division, it'd be not even in my top 20 of fights that could be made, if that. Certainly wouldn't want it for a bitch title. If I was in his shoes, I'd say, why the fuck am I doing a Riddick belt here? And vacating for something that's far less a prestigious belt. I mean, it's an alright fight. I'd watch it, but I wouldn't give a shit about it, to be honest.
Yeah. So, are you surprised by the bitch move from Quillin, or no?
I think you've got to slate him for not standing up for what's best for him. But I also like I said, I kind of feel sorry for the fact that if he's been told a load of bullshit and he's naive enough to believe it, then, you know, I just think the blame the person I would be happier to call the bitch is Al Heyman. You've got a fighter that you're meant to be looking after, who's got a fantastic offer, who's fighting in his hometown, who's fighting a boxer that's lesser known and probably isn't that dangerous, you know, who is going to be another thing as well. This offer that was made to him was by Rock Nation, which is Jay-Z's new promotional company. He'd have got an absolute ton of press off that as well. You know, there would have been a lot of hype around that. And as an advisor, you've told your fighter that you said you need to look after and should have best interest at heart not to take that. He's a fucking dick for doing that. Let's be honest, he is. For doing that, and you know, it's all well and good him saying that when he's not the one stepping in the ring, when he's not the one who's got the wife and kids to look after at home, who could be spinning a load of bullshit to his fighters. You know, if anyone's, you know, when I say, you know, term that we used is bitch, and I'd definitely say it's more Al Heyman.
Okay, we'll just leave you there for a bit, and we'll bring in Paulie Mack. So, Paul.
All right.
Yeah. What do you think about this whole situation? If you, as a world level boxer, you were presented with the $1.4 million to fight a guy not the best in the division inside your hometown, are you taking it or are you leaving it?
It depends if he's got a better offer off someone else, and as far as we know, no, he hasn't. He's not going to make 1.4 million fighting Danny Jacobs. Will he even make half of that? Probably not. Probably not. No, he's not fighting for a real world title as far as the fans are concerned. Is Danny Jacobs okay? Danny Jacobs is a fighter who everyone respects, but is he a fighter who, if you beat him, people are going to make a big song and dance over it? No. So I just don't. It's, again, going off what Rory said, it's just Al Heyman telling him a load of rubbish. He's naive enough to believe it. He's probably not got a backbone to stand up and say to Al Heyman, no, you know what, I think you're wrong. I actually do want to take this fight. I'm not going to take your advice. I'm going to do what I want to do. So that's what I feel. He really should have stood up and told Al Heyman and whoever it is who's advising him that that's a stick it, basically, that he doesn't like what they're telling him. He should have just trusted his gut and taken this fight, got the money, kept his belt, and kept some dignity, to be honest.
Yeah. Is Peter Quillin a disgrace to the real Kid Chocolate?
Well, Peter Quillin calls himself Kid Chocolate as well. He's not a Snickers bar, is he? Because he's clearly got no nuts. He's not standing up to Al Heyman and saying, you know what, no, this is too good an offer to turn down. I don't care that it's not on your card, and it's not on, you know, I don't care that you've got no control over this. I don't care that I'm fighting on another promoter's bill. I want to go in there and I want to get the money, and I want to defend my title. That's what a fighter with any brains or any balls would have said to Al Heyman. Because, as I've said, there's no way Al Heyman will have come to him and gave him a better offer. He's taken a worse offer, probably a much worse offer, simply because his boss, because that's what Al Heyman is, he's just a boss to all his fighters. He's not an advisor. Basically just treats them like he treats them like they're just his lackeys, his employees. He's basically just doing what his boss has told him, and he's not arguing.
Here's a point I just realised. A lot of people said that, you know, Frank Warren treats his fighters like employees too. Would it be safe to say that Al Heyman's like a shit version of Frank Warren?
Al Heyman is like Mr. Burns off The Simpsons. That's how he treats his employees. He probably sits in a big office somewhere with a load of screens looking at his fighters every single day, every single second, and probably thinks, all right, how can I maneuver this guy today? How can I fuck this guy over and make more money for myself today? And make them still love me and make them think that I'm still doing the right thing for their career when I'm so blatantly aren't.
That's right. Al Heyman basically wants to make Peter Quillin versus Danny Jacobs for this bitch title. Do you want to see that fight or no?
No. Does anyone really want to see that fight? I mean, it wouldn't be awful. It's not like if it happens, it would just be some stylistic nightmare and it would be a stinker. But what does it mean? What does it prove? Either guy wins.
Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, exactly. Nothing.
In fact, I've got a better question for you. Is this a lose-lose situation for Danny Jacobs? Sorry, not for Danny Jacobs. For Peter Quillin in that fight against Danny Jacobs, because I'll come straight out and say I'm not afraid. If he beats Danny Jacobs, okay, you've beat a guy who's just won a world title, but he's more known for surviving cancer than he is for his boxing. Okay, so you just beat a guy who had cancer. Okay. Right? If you lose to a guy who was in a wheelchair for ages because he had cancer, what does that say? That's worse.
I know.
It's a lose-lose situation.
And I want to say something else.
And I want to say something else. It was disgusting the way Showtime were hyping off Danny Jacobs surviving cancer. It was disgusting. I know people who've had cancer, and they all want to just get on with their life. They don't want to be known by, oh, that's the guy who had cancer. They don't want to be known as that. You know what I mean? The way they might as well have just came out in the commentary and said, Danny Jacobs ducked that punch like he ducked cancer. He knocked him out like he knocked out cancer. He's a good fighter. Just hype Danny Jacobs or praise Danny Jacobs for
Danny Jacobs,
boxer,
the boxer, yeah.
For the boxer, not the man who beat cancer. No one gives a shit about that.
Yeah.
So, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I agree with everything you've just said. But even then, it's still a fight. Even if Danny Jacobs wasn't this big cancer survivor who had this big, Hollywood story, it would still be a fight that no one's bothered about. Perfectly honest. Danny Jacobs is not a top. I don't know. Maybe some people put him in the top 10 of the middleweight division. But is he a top 5 guy? Is he the guy who the fans, really think of as one of the top dogs? No, he's not. To be perfectly honest, what does Peter Quillin achieve by beating him? Nothing really, because he's not getting a legitimate world title. He's surely not getting much money for doing it, and he's not going to get any praise off the fans. He's just going to get shit off the fans.
Exactly. It's lose-lose.
Yep.
I mean, if he wants to take that fight, here's a good point. Why not fight Korobov first and make it later in the year? You know what I mean? Fight one, then fight the other. You can do that, surely. But apparently not, because Belen knows best. So are you surprised with this bitch move from Quillin or not?
No, not really, to be perfectly honest, because I've thought it for a while now. Peter Quillin and Golden Boy and whoever it is behind his career, Al Heyman, they've never really shown any ambition, have they, to be perfectly honest? They've never really, tried to seriously make the tough fights. They've never shown any desire to fight someone like a Golovkin or fight someone like Martinez when Martinez was still at the top of his game. They've never shown any desire to fight Martin Murray or who's the other guy I'm thinking of, Andy Lee. Just all the top guys in the middleweight division. They've never, to my knowledge, ever tried to make those fights happen or ever come out and said they want those fights. They've just been content to fight, journeymen or guys who are washed up or guys who are natural 154-pound fighters and are not the same at middleweight. They've wanted Quillin to have an easy ride, basically. Yeah. And Quillin, for his part, has just been content with that. I've never heard him come out and say, I want to fight the better opponents. I wish I could fight better opponents, because he hasn't. So, right. No, I'm not surprised that Peter Quillin and his management have basically done a bit of a BS move, a bullshit move.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. I'm honestly not surprised, because I'm surprised about the money and the amount they turned down, because that's life-changing money, but I'm not surprised because, like I said, he's never fought anyone any good in his career. Winky Wright was shot when he fought him. Wasted shot, maybe. Injikam's got a bad chin, and it was a competitive fight. Rosado almost was giving him a good run for his money, then he had to, the doctor or the referee stopped the fight. I'm not surprised at all. He fought against that light middleweight they brought up for like a one-fight thing, and he retired straight after it. And he couldn't even knock him out. He retired straight after it with a detached retina or something. It's a joke. I'm not surprised with Quillin. I'm not surprised at all. tell us if you're surprised, or just tell us your general thoughts on this. But personally, I'm not surprised.